I'm going to try my best to get through this. We'll see how well I do. So first, I want to thank everyone for coming today. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Monica, and I'm Mark's daughter. And just looking around and seeing everyone, it's a testament to who my dad was and who he touched and the lives that he's been involved with. Obviously, this has been hard for not just me, but my family, and it's hard for me and it was very hard for me to put into words to what I wanted to say, how much my dad meant to me, and how losing him has affected me. There's many times that I've gone to call him or wanted to talk to him about something or just wanted to see him or whatever, remembering something like, oh, hey, I should call dad and say, and I'm like, I can't. And I hate that. I hate that every moment of every single day. So like I said, it was really hard for me to put into words what I wanted to say. So instead, I'm just going to, in a sense, just give what I remember of my dad to pay tribute to him. I remember how when we'd go camping, he'd wake up as early as I wanted just so he could take me on the lake so I'd have fresh water because I didn't want to be on the lake with other boats. I wanted like the clean glass, and he would wake up. It's like as soon as the sun would come up, I'd wake him up and he'd take me out. I remember him taking me to father-daughter dances with Girl Scouts at school. I remember watching him play Mario Brothers on a Nintendo system for hours. Mario Brothers 2 until he finally beat the game. I remember how he could sleep anywhere, but he was never asleep. He was only resting his eyes. Always. I remember how much he loved a recliner. If you've been to my parents' house, there's always been a recliner, and it was his recliner. I remember swimming with him. I remember him swimming not only with me and the boys, the pool we have access to now, but at my grandma's house and my aunt's house for years. Anytime we'd say, let's go swimming, he'd be the first one in the pool. I remember him teaching me to play pool, not very well because I suck, but I also remember him teaching the boys and just playing pool with him. I remember waiting every night for him to get home from work because we couldn't start dinner without him because we needed to have family dinner. But I remember waiting at that table for 5:30 and Mom saying he's gonna be home any minute so that we could have dinner. I remember going to Dodger games. I remember watching Dodger games with him. I remember when he used to work at Scott and Chevrolet, and we'd go visit him in his stalls, and we'd walk into the stall like we own the place. Not that we're these little kids at a place we probably shouldn't be, but we'd walk in like it was our own. I remember watching him play baseball for years. Slow pitch, fast pitch, Monday night, low lives. I remember going to all the games that we could. I remember him letting me put whatever I wanted together at the house just so I could use tools, whether it be a barbecue or whatever it was. If I wanted to find something to put together, he'd let me do it. I remember him teaching me to ski and drowning me, and then teaching me how to ski without drowning, and I remember him teaching me how to launch the boat and which way to drive, and when you back up, how to work the car with that. I remember when we went to San Diego, and we had this conversation randomly about dill pickle chips. And we stayed at this motel that I somehow researched, the Vagabond Motel. And I remember him going to the vending machine, and in the vending machine there happened to be a bag of dill pickle chips. So he went out and he bought me that bag just because we'd had that conversation earlier that day. I remember the time he called me from the Tom Petty concert when I was in college. And I was so mad that I didn't get to go because I had classes that I couldn't miss. He calls me and he leaves me a voicemail and he shouts 2 words, second encore, and then he plays the music for me in the background. I remember the time my husband, now my husband, but at the time when we were dating, Derek brought me home plastered. I was so drunk I needed the walls to stand up. And I remember passing out in my room, but before I did, my dad came in and said, if you're gonna be sick, roll over. Don't choke on your vomit. I remember when I needed help and he would pick the boys up from school for me. Or on days when I needed, if he was off, he'd watch the boys for me, and he'd always have an activity or something planned with them. I remember the time he planted corn with Jason and then would call me and send me pictures of how the corn was growing because it was Jason's corn. I remember he taught Lucas magic tricks. He taught him how to play the game War. He taught him how to do card tricks. And afterwards, when Lucas was really into it, he made sure for his birthday to pick out a special magic kit just for him. I remember him carving pumpkins with the boys, making a Ninja Turtle for Lucas just because Lucas was obsessed with them. I remember him dressing up every year, trick-or-treating with us. I remember any time we'd be talking about music and we'd be like, what is that song? Tell me how that song sounds. And it didn't matter what song it was, they all sounded the same. He was tone deaf. All the songs sounded, every single song, it doesn't matter what it was, sounded the same. I remember the last thing I said to him, and the last time I saw him, at Lucas's baseball practice, when I said, I'll see you tomorrow night for dinner. Growing up, I've had so many good memories with my dad, and as we were putting together the slideshow, it was more evident about all the experiences that he was a part of in my adult life, in my childhood, and he was a good man. My dad was a great man, and he is going to be missed by so many people. And I really want to thank you all for coming today because it means so much to me and my family, and I want to thank you for that.
Hey everybody, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Tom. I'm Mark's youngest brother. I'd like to start off with just a little note from my Aunt Carolyn, who couldn't be here. She wanted to say a little bit about Mark and asked me to share it with them, that Mark was a true Gibson. He never wanted to lose at any game. She remembers when he was born and teaching him to play cards, and she said he was as competitive then as he was last year when she was out here and they were all playing games together. He never really wanted to lose. Our Auntie C and her friend Karen spent tons of time out here vacationing in California, and they'd spent time with us, and they'd go spend time with Mark and Lisa and the kids, and they would always go to different shows and events. They would take them, and they really loved doing that. She said last year they decided, let's go play golf. Mark hadn't played golf in forever, and they didn't bring their golf clubs. They're avid golfers. So she said, I think Mark literally dug up clubs to play with them because they were older than she was. She also remembers last time she was out here that Mark was very proud to show the garden that he had planted with Lucas and Jason, and she said that was just something that he was really proud of and couldn't wait till it came in and to eat the food that they grew together. She wanted everybody to know that Mark was like a second son to her, and he will truly, deeply be missed by our family in Indiana. It's tough to really know where to start when I talk about my brother Mark. I mean, obviously, you look at these slides, and he was a great husband to Lisa. He raised 2 kids into wonderful adults, and he was a loving grandfather, but he was also really the quintessential brother. I mean, Mark was like the heart of our family. He created a special connection to each and every one of us, not just his brothers and sisters, but to his nephews, to his grandkids, to his aunts and uncles and his cousins. I would venture to say if you ask any one of my brothers and sisters who they felt the closest to, they would say Mark. I mean, for me, my friends would say, well, how can you be so close to your brother? He's so much older than you. And it's simple. It was sports. There was always a game going on between Mark and Mike and Steve and I. And the only way to make it fair was the oldest and the youngest, Mark and I, against Steve and Mike. That's what we did. I mean, my first memory of these epic games was playing baseball in the parkway down the street in Indiana. And that grass strip couldn't have been more than 6 feet wide, but we played baseball there. And he was always there to help me improve playing sports, because it wasn't really because he wanted to help me. It was because he wanted to make sure that we would win when we played Mike and Steve. Right? Because, hey, you know, I think if you look up the word Gibson, it's synonymous, it's a synonym of competitive. That's just the way we are. Mark also showed us that family is not just blood when he introduced us to his best friend, Art. Long story short, not after it seemed like after I met him, he was living with us. And probably because, you know, if you have two sets of bunk beds in a room, there's this open space in the middle that really is calling for a rollaway bed. But luckily, they converted the garage after a couple of months, and there was a little more breathing room in the house. And Mark also never made, at least me, feel like the annoying little brother. And I'm sure I was for a lot of the times. You know, he always seemed to include us in everything he did. Like Mark and Art started riding dirt bikes. Right after that, they bought Mike his first dirt bike. They bought Steve and our first dirt bikes, and they drove us around to Simi Valley or to Muntz so we could go dirt bike riding. They taught us to water ski. I mean, they taught so many people here how to water ski. You weren't the only ones they drowned. There was that picture of everybody pulling, right? We all took our turns pulling and dragging the little kids around, but they taught us how to water ski. They also taught us how to solve the little concentration puzzles at the top of the Lucky Loggers. And that was long before I was old enough to know how to do that, at least legally. I learned from Mark the intricacies of playing card games like euchre and pinochle and hearts. He taught me strategy, like take off your shoes and socks when you're playing spades so you can pass cards under the table. Now, okay, that was really only one day, and we were laughing so hard that we couldn't keep our faces straight, but it's just something that he learned. You know, I learned from Mark that some people just don't look right without facial hair. If you ever saw Mark one of the few times he didn't have facial hair, you know he was one of those people. I learned mechanical things from Mark. I learned the proper steps to fix your car. He taught me some of that. He also taught me that on some of the older cars, the windshield wiper sprayer was on the hood. And you could actually turn that, so when you're driving down the street and you didn't want to clean your windshield, you could spray passing pedestrians or other cars. I also learned from Mark not to spray motorcycle cops when you did that, because you might be arrested for assault on a police officer. But he did tell me not to worry because the judge would be smart enough to just throw it out. Mark was also there anytime anybody needed help. When I was in my 20s, I injured my back, and he was there. Every day I was in the hospital for over a week. He helped me stand the first time. He helped me walk so I could get moving. He also told me to ask out the nurse, which was an excellent suggestion. Years later, when I had my cancer surgery, he spent the time with Patty all day long, so she wouldn't have to sit there by herself worrying what I was doing. He was always there. Mark and Lisa spent literally hundreds of hours taking care of our family, especially Jim and my mom and my sister Ann. God rest their souls. He was a godsend to them and to our family, both of you guys, for everything that you did during those times. I'm gonna sorely miss Mark's smile, his laugh, his constant denial that he wasn't sleeping. But I just don't know where our family would be without Mark. But I do know that we won the DNA lottery when we got Mark as a brother. I love him so much, and he's gonna take a piece of my heart with him.
Good afternoon, everyone. For those of you that don't know me, I am Marty Coppolo. I'm Lisa and Mark's cousin on Lisa's side. Lisa's mom, Polly, is my mother's younger sister, so that makes Lisa and I first cousins. But over the years, I think of her more than a cousin. I think of her as my friend, my sister by choice, and my great advisor. So I thought I would start off with a little joke to loosen up the crowd. And it was hard because I had to find a baseball joke. I don't know much about baseball. Lisa will tell you that. A baseball scout found a remarkable prospect, a horse who was a pretty good fielder, but he also hit the ball every time he was up at bat. The scout got him to try out with a big league team. Up at bat, the horse slammed the ball into far left field and stood at the plate watching it go. The manager said, "Run, run!" The horse said, "Are you kidding? If I could run, I'd be in the Kentucky Derby." It was 7:30 a.m. Mountain Time on the morning of Friday, February 18th, 2022, when my phone rang and I was barely awake and I looked at the phone. It was Lisa's phone, and a call like that at that time was unusual, and I thought the worst. I'm always prepared for the call about my Auntie Polly. But it wasn't Lisa on the phone, it was Phyllis. And her words have forever burned into my memory. She said, "Marty, it's Phyllis. I have some really bad news. Lisa's Mark didn't wake up this morning. Lisa's Mark didn't wake up this morning, and he's gone." I was numbed. I was heartbroken. How could this be? I'd just been there 4 days earlier for the Super Bowl. Mark and I had gone to the Porsche Museum in Valencia on Valentine's Day, February 14th. He had shown me the special insulated mug that he bought Lisa. It was so great, I went and bought, he took me to Walmart, and I said, "I want the exact same mug. I want that mug, that's perfect." You turn the lid, you press the button, it's always right by your lips. Have you ever had a mug, where you turn it and you pour it and it pours down the side of your face? This was perfect. And then he's gone? Mark and I established a special friendship over the decades. He and I would always try to do something on the Friday or the Monday that I'd come to visit. There couldn't have been a better weekend of memories watching the Super Bowl. And your team won, right? Los Angeles? The Rams? Yeah. I'll get to that later. I heard that. Watching the Super Bowl, we were watching the Olympics, the snowboarders, the skiers, the ice dancing. I'll cherish those memories forever. Mark Gibson was a special man. Many men are fathers, but none were as outstanding in the love and the art of parenting as Mark. You can see it in Monica and Bradley. You guys have grown up to be incredible adults. Your dad was so proud of you and your lives and how you've turned out to be such amazing adults. Monica, Brad, there comes a time that we all have to join this club of losing a parent. I joined December 2nd, 1972, and again on March the 5th, 1991. There's never a good time to join, and I'm so sorry. Many men are good grandfathers. But how many grandfathers do you know that coach their grandchildren in baseball? I can count them on one hand. Actually, I can count them on one finger. That was Mark. Mark had a very special relationship with his grandchildren, Lucas and Jason. Lucas, Jason, I want you to know that your grandfather was always talking about you guys. He loved you guys very much. And if you look up in the dictionary, proud grandfather, there's a picture of Mark, Lucas, and Jason. So I'm very sorry for your loss. Many men have a passion for hobbies. Mark's were scuba diving, bike riding, water skiing, camping, baseball, and auto racing. But few have won multiple underwater pumpkin carving contests. Few have played baseball and taught his kids and their grandkids, his grandkids, to play baseball. And few have been to the Indy 500. So Mark and I flew from different parts of the world to meet and stay with Mark's cousin Mike for the first of Mark and Marty's excellent adventures. The second excellent adventure was when he came out to Phoenix for spring training in 2019. We saw a couple baseball games. But meeting Mark in Indianapolis and having that week there, that'll be one of my cherished memories. Many men have a passion for sports, but Mark was a walking encyclopedia of both baseball and football. He knew the most obscure rules of the game, and I'm going to miss that. Many men are generous, but Mark was generous on a whole different level. He was generous with his time, with his heart, and with his spirit. From volunteering to coach baseball to letting his hair grow for a year to donate it to be made into a wig. From taking care of his mom, his dad, his stepdad, and to taking care of Lisa's mom. I remember the one time I was visiting Mark and Lisa. Lisa was at work, and Mark got a call from his mom. Mark was so calm and patient, listening to what his mom needed. I don't know if he came upon this naturally, or if it was from years of living with Lisa, that he developed this patience. And speaking of Lisa, his absolutely beautiful, smart love of his life. Many men are husbands. Some are pretty good. But Mark was one of the best husbands I have ever had the pleasure of knowing. He loved Lisa to the moon and back. And on my last visit, I made it clear that they had a special relationship, a friendship, a partnership. I just want to share a little antidote of that love. So we were shopping for Valentine's Day dinner. I was going to make them my world-famous spaghetti with brown butter and Mazithra cheese. Has anybody had Mazithra cheese?
Spaghetti factory.
That's right. One person, he's a restaurateur, so he would know. So it's for those of you that don't know, it's a dry, salty Greek cheese that is rarely available. I guess the spaghetti factory secures it all. So I personally secured a piece of this cheese from one of the culinary capitals of the world, Phoenix, Arizona. And I brought it here to make a nice Valentine's Day dinner for Lisa and Mark. So I needed a bright green vegetable to add some color to the plate. Mike, you'd get this, okay? And so I chose broccoli. And after dinner, Mark said, well, I don't like broccoli, but Lisa likes broccoli. So he let me buy a vegetable that he wouldn't eat because the woman he loved liked it. That says a lot, and I'm sure there's countless more stories that you all have about Mark. Mark Gibson lived his life to make other people happy, whether it was his children, his grandchildren, his friends, or Lisa. That was Mark, just an overall great guy. And his passing is a shock to us all, and he will be forever missed. And in closing, the lesson I learned with Mark's passing made me think of this story that I wanted to share with you today. It's called The Train of Life. Life is a journey on a train with its stations, with its change of routes, and with its accidents. At birth, we board the train and we met our parents, and we believe that they will always travel by our side on that train. However, at some station on some day, our parents will step down from the train, leaving us on this journey alone. As time goes by, other people will join the train, and they will be significant. For example, our siblings, our friends, our children, our cousins, and even the love of our life. Many will step down and leave a permanent vacuum. Others will go so unnoticed that we didn't even realize they vacated their seats. The train ride will be full of joy, fantasy, expectations, hellos, goodbyes, farewell, and sorrow. Success consists of having a good relationship with all the passengers, requiring that we give the best of ourselves. The mystery to everyone is we don't know at which station we ourselves will step down. So we must live in the best way we can every day to the fullest. Love, forgive, and offer the best of who we are. It's important for us to do this because when the time comes for us to step down and leave our seat empty, we should leave behind beautiful memories for those who will continue to travel on the train of life. Mark Gibson did just that.
I'm gonna do my best here. Should have gone last. The truth is, my dad wouldn't want us to be sad. He wouldn't want us to dwell. He'd want us to take all these many lessons that persevering today to continue to live our best lives. He taught me to love through action and not words. To do the things for people that you love that not all other people are always willing to do, no matter how hard it is or how much pain or inconvenience it may cause you. He taught me that if mom runs leave errands, to run errands, and says she'll be back in 3 hours, and gives you a list of chores to do, you got about 2.5 hours to play video games. Before a very intense 30-minute cram session of chores. He taught me about family and how important it is, how necessary it is. But also, as my Uncle Tom also said, you don't have to be blood to be family. You know when someone's part of your family, regardless of any bloodline. And honestly, when I look here and you hear the stories that everyone's been telling, these last 2 weeks have just been so overwhelming, there couldn't be a better example. He taught me how to detach the vent to the dryer, so when I wanted to party with my friends in the garage over winter, we could stay warm. He taught me that if you hide a joint, hide it in a better spot. So he said, "Brad, what are you thinking? This is such a stupid spot to hide this." He taught me to just suck it up and try not to complain, to try to get things done. Over the last decade, my dad went through a series of injuries that a lot of people might not be aware about. And the irony is that his original back issue came from him trying to help. At one of his old jobs, he was helping mop up so everybody could get out early, wring out a mop. And when he wrung out that mop, it broke. He fell over the top of it and forever messed up his back. A few years ago, he had a hernia surgery, a routine hernia surgery. They nicked a vein without knowing. After they sealed him up, he bled 40% of his blood into his abdomen wall, ballooned to 60 inches. He had back-to-back shoulder surgeries. Basically went 2 years without the use of both of his arms, because it took a year for each one. And a lot of people aren't aware of the many things he was going through because he would never complain about it. He would never post about it. He never felt sorry for himself. He never had a poor me attitude. He just sucked it up, worked his ass off to get better because that's who he was. He was a man of many hats. We were only able to bring 4 of them today. We could line this entire room if we wanted them to. As you may have heard, again, I had the good fortune of my dad just not being my dad, but he was my coach growing up. Every team that I was ever on, he was my coach. And he taught me about competition. And if you do lose, just make sure you go out swinging no matter what. The LL hat, for those that don't know, that stands for low life. And to some of you, low life might be a derogatory term, but for a lot of people in this room, it's a rite of passage. Because low life means Monday night softball. That's all it means. I grew up watching him. I joined the team. My friends played on the team. My friends played on the team once I wasn't on the team. He always tried his hardest, even when his legs would not move, when his belly was moving quicker than his legs. One of the most vivid memories I have about softball is him ripping a line drive to left center, taking off the first base, stumbling out the box, falling on his belly in the dirt halfway there, crawling, and then diving for first base to barely make it safe when the ball just hit the fence. That was my dad. The Dodger hat. He just taught me to love the Dodgers. Just as simple as that. And that stupid straw fedora.
Yeah.
I call it his grandpa hat because he got it when he became a grandpa. And as they said, seeing him play with my nephews, knowing that even 1% of that energy was ever given to me as a child, just warmed my heart so much. I actually want to share the last few messages we had together, because I think that it really says who this guy is. In the middle of January, my mom had gotten COVID, and he texted me, "Mom is feeling really down today since she tested positive for COVID and couldn't see Grandma over the weekend. And she'll not be able to see her when she turns 92 for her birthday. Please give her a call or text just to say hi, how are you? I'm sure it will help brighten her day." If I had $1 for every time my dad told me to call or text my mom, I'd have a lot of money. But it was so important to make sure that Mom was happy. It's so important. I didn't message him back, I just called her right away and spoke to her about it. And then he texted me right back afterwards. He must have been sitting next to her and just said thank you. He then congratulated me for winning fantasy football. It was a Cinderella story, we don't have to go into it. He then sent me a screenshot of one of the rides he was doing, because he was big on tracking his rides on his bike. And he sent me a screenshot that just said, "This is the fastest and furthest I've ever done in 1 hour." The next text, "Please call Mom." And the final one was him making fun of me because Jimmy Garoppolo's last pass was garbage and he lost the championship game. Because although we saw eye to eye on the Dodgers, let's not get started on football. A few years back, one of the many times that Canyon Country caught on fire, the fire got scary close to my parents' house. So close that our neighbors were affected. A few neighbors lost half their house. Like, very scary close. At the time, my dad was the only person home. And again, he had one arm at the time, or one arm that was mobile. And so I call him and I'm like, what's going on? Get your butt out of there. Like, we don't know what's going on. He's like, no, I'm just grabbing some stuff and I'll be out. He's like, okay, great. Then all the cell phone service in that area went dark and we couldn't get a hold of them for about 2 hours. And we got scared, genuinely scared. We're just hearing these reports of houses being on fire. We can't get a hold of my dad and he's partly immobile. About 2 hours passed or so. I called, probably panicked my mom a little bit. Talked to Monica, no one could get a hold of him. He calls me, or I finally call him, and he picks up super casually, and I'm like, Dad, where the hell are you? It turns out that instead of just leaving and getting his ass out of there, he decided to get with his band of neighborhood brothers and go chase down the little fires that they could with one arm and a garden hose. But that was the most important lesson that he taught me. About being selfless. My dad was the most selfless man that I've ever met. He taught me the difference between being generous and being selfless. There's nobility in both. Generosity, a lot of times, can stem from having an abundance of something. Sometimes it's very easy to be generous. But being selfless means that you had to sacrifice a part of yourself in order to help somebody. And it doesn't matter how much pain it causes you, as long as you know your sacrifice will help alleviate the pain of somebody else. Because you know you can take it. And it doesn't matter if you have a bad back, a botched surgery, one working arm. You just grab a garden hose and go help your neighbor. I love and miss my dad so much. And if there's one thing I could say to him, it'd be that you might be gone, but we'll never stop living without you. Thank you.